inside right now. I've done 4 coats in total. 2 coats of rust bullet on the floor pan, on the ceiling, the frame, I don't know what the term is, in the fastback area behind the quarter panel. This place isn't reachable normally, so I sprayed as much as I could some rust bullet in there. After that, it was followed by 2 coats of epoxy primer everywhere, and it went okay. My gun wasn't the cleanest, and I was rushed with time. I ended up finishing at nearly 11 p.m. So now we have a 3-day window, 72 hours to put the filler onto the car. I'm not going to install the panels yet, the front fender and the doors, just because I want to finish this up, install the quarter panel that I'm hoping to receive early this week. So once everything is done, now I can put the rage. The reason why there's a 72-hour window is because that's what's written on the epoxy primer. Some epoxy primer have a 7-day window, which probably would be better in my case, but that's the stuff I get. So putting some filler here. I got this. I have this Evercoat Rage Gold, which is pretty standard in the industry, and I'm going to fill what I can, and what I cannot do, we're going to have to scuff back the epoxy, the primary epoxy, in order to reseal it somewhere in the future.
Ça, c'est le 440 Sibari avec ce qu'on appelle le shaker.
Le shaker, c'est ça.
Okay.
Quand il y a le shaker, il y a un trou de moins de
ça, le 440, tu pouvais l'avoir shaker ou non shaker. C'est toujours des options.
C'est une option, c'est ça. Il faut avoir le haut de rallye qu'on appelle.
C'est gros quand même, hein, le shaker.
Oui, c'est ça. Ouais. Dans le petit bol, là, t'as 6 bons pour démancher. C'est long, là.
Ouais,
mais c'est beau, vois-tu, mais il y en a qui comment c'est beau, un shaker.
Yesterday we finished pretty late, so I didn't film the process because it took way too long. I ordered, there are 2 brackets here. They're called fender reinforcement brackets. It's basically an L-shaped bracket that allows us to bolt this bottom here into this here. And so that will keep the fender closer to the rest of the car, but for the alignment it was not crucial. We could still do pretty much without it, and as you can see, the gap is I wouldn't say great, but it's decent, like it's workable. I would like to have that gap here all along. Here it gets a little bit wider, and then wider here, and a lot wider here. So what I'm going to do is add some more material here with the welder, because we can see here it was grinded. There are grinder marks, so it was probably removed, and that's maybe the reason why there's a bit of a gap, larger than I would like on this side. On the other side, pretty close to good. Up here it's a bit tight. I'm gonna grind some material off. And there's just
that area here where I welded my bracket for my side scoop. So a little bit of material added to here, and then my gap is pretty much good all the way down to here, till where it gets a little bit too close. So what I'm gonna do is try to either knock some material out here, or in the last resort I'm going to grind a little bit off the door. But I don't really like grinding off the door because this is a thin sheet metal that's curved, that's wrapped around the other panel, so you don't really want to mess too much with this. So most of the work we're gonna have to do with the quarter panel. But you know, a lot of people just let these they just keep these gaps as it is because it's pretty much how it was out of the factory at that time. It was some were even more horrible, but this is a good restoration. I don't want to turn corners while I'm still at it. I don't want to have any regrets once the car is painted, so I'm going to put some more time into making sure that these gaps are as close to perfection as I can possibly get.
I didn't bother filming the whole body filler process because obviously it's not that interesting to watch, and there are hundreds of videos on YouTube that will explain it way better than I do. Plus there is a ton of body filling and sanding to do, so you won't miss it. What was crucial was to put down that first coat of body filler while the epoxy primer is still curing. And while that first coat was hardening, me and my dad installed the door and the fender on the passenger side.
As you can see, I was adding some welding along the edge to add some add metal where the gap was too large. I used masking tape then to define where exactly I wanted my edge to be, and then it's just a matter of grinding up onto the tape line. There's still some tweaking to do, like right here and a little bit right here, and then I have to remove material right about here, and then we're gonna put some short strand body filler, which is a fiberglass reinforced body filler. It is waterproof. It is not meant to build an edge, it's meant to refine it, and then we're gonna put some regular lightweight body filler to finish the other body filler, which is porous. And then I'm going to use sandpaper and just refine that edge so it doesn't have a really hard edge that looks unnatural. Like every panel edge is rounded, so it's just a matter of breaking that corner. But we're getting there, like really close. I'm really glad we're not that far off. Same here, I'm going to have to build an edge there, here too, and we're pretty good here. Just need to be careful not to be too tight here, because when the door opens, you see how close that comes. If you come too close, this point here, this point here will actually eventually rub on this, and you're gonna have paint chips.
Basically, the process is always the same. You have a filler and the hardener that you mix with the correct ratio on a mixing board. Then you apply a skim coat with a plastic or steel spatula. And then you take a sandpaper with a block, which is called blocking, and you sand in an X pattern to avoid making low spots. And basically you just rinse and repeat until the low spots are no longer visible.
The day I went to pick up my quarter panel. This is a Dynacorn quarter panel. It's a really nice piece. It comes with a weld-through primer, electroconductive coating on top of it. So according to Dynacorn, I don't have to do anything to this part. So it's quite different from the other coatings, the previous coatings that they used, which is typically called the E-coating, which is a black electroconductive coating, which is also weld-through. From what I've learned, it's not a really good foundation for an epoxy primer if you don't scuff it beforehand. This has a different feel. It's rougher, so I think the epoxy primer won't have any difficulty to grip onto the paint.
All set right now. I had some tiny bit of modifications to do, but overall it fit pretty well. I had made this flange on the top here, so I'm going to use my panel adhesive on top here. Here I'm just going to put spot welds as there is no danger to overheat the metal, and I need something that will hold fast. This takes 24 hours to cure. The only thing that's different is like here, but other than that, I have pretty much, maybe I have an 1/8 of an inch gap here. It's going to close up, working it a little bit, but other than that, it's pretty much ready to weld. Now going to apply the seam sealer. I have two versions here, the brush-on type seam sealer and the caulking type. This one is used more for bigger, larger gaps. Seam sealer is used to cover any gap or any joint between sheet metal. The brush-on is usually used for smaller areas where there are spot welds and you don't want moisture to go in there. The caulking type is used for larger areas, like where you have a gap here that's larger than maybe a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch. You want to make sure that water doesn't enter or infiltrate at one point in time. So this is an
tedious step because you have to do everything under the car and inside the floor panel, but it does it makes all the difference in the long run.
A new turn in this adventure. Turns out I'm going to replace that door. There were a couple of rust pits here, and pretty much all along the bottom of the door. And this is not surface rust. And this is coming from the inside of the panel. There was a lot of work done. You ground this so much that you barely can see that line anymore. It's not even there. This is supposed to be this sharp. As you can see, the sharp line of the door just disappears here. I don't want to rebuild that with filler or anything crappy like that. There was a big patch here, obviously a lot of body filler around it, and the inside on the bottom there's a lot of rust. But the thing is, the rust is like, there is a piece of steel that goes flat on the bottom of the door, right above that lip here where the rust is. So my worry is, even if I sandblast the interior, I won't be able to reach under that piece of metal, and that rust will always come back because there's no way to clean this really tight amount here besides cutting off the whole bottom of the door, which is totally out of the question. So yeah, I'm gonna get a new door. They're out of stock, but my good friend Pierre Olivier didn't have, he has a Dynacorn new door and he hasn't done the alignment on his car, and he isn't planning on doing it anytime soon. So he will bring me his door tomorrow. And I've already ordered a new door that I will give him, and so we can help each other out.
We finally managed to install that fender. I cleaned both edges with the pneumatic sander, and then I added some welds. You can see there are 4 spots where I added material with the welder, and then ground everything up. And then I'm going to add the Everglass, which is a fiberglass short strand reinforced body filler, and this is going to just refine the edges. It is waterproof, it is extremely durable. It is recommended by the manufacturer for high stresses area, joints, and edges, door panels. So this is exactly the product you want, and you don't build an edge with it, you just refine it. If you were to like build an 1/8 of an inch right on the edge, some decent hit on it would make it crack. So you don't want to do that. You just refine what you already have in metal, and then you refine it with body filler. After that, we're gonna mount the hood. Hopefully tonight, I have a couple of friends that are going to come and help and try to install that hood. So let's hope it goes well. Clean up my metal with isopropyl alcohol just to clean all the sanding, dust, and contaminants. Now you don't want to mix too big of a batch at the same time, because you want to have enough time to work it where you want without the hardener starting to fire up the chemical reaction, because right now we're outside, it's about 26 degrees Celsius. So if I were to put the regular amount of hardener that is recommended on the instructions, I wouldn't be able to do anything, because it would harden so fast that I would waste probably more than half of the of that stuff. So barely do a small nib like that, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is actually more than enough, and it will start firing pretty fast. You want to mix it pretty thin without introducing air bubbles. So you start by spreading it like that, and then just picking up everything and then spreading it again. You see there's almost no air bubbles. Just keep working it, and the thinner it is, the easier it mixes, but it also serves another purpose. It delays the hardening reaction, because the thicker the material, the hotter it will get and the faster it will harden. I am by no means a pro at this, and this is not my first batch, and you'll see, you'll probably have to waste a couple of those before you learn. Just want to spread it around the edges. I'm not putting in too thick, just a skim coat. Here we have some dent, previous damage. Correct that as well. I can already feel that it's starting to harden. I'm still able to work it, but I know that my time is almost up. Now, how do you clean this? Well, you need a solvent. I use this universal gun cleaner, which works extremely well. Start by scraping off the remaining filler that you have. It's better to do this until it is fully hardened, because otherwise it's harder to get out. This is still pretty soft. I'm getting most of it off. Then just spray a tiny bit on there. Just wipe it off. There it is. Now for the sanding part. I'm using these DuraBlock. They're just rigid foam sanding blocks. You can use, I've seen some people on YouTube use insulation foam, which is kind of a similar but less rigid type of foam, and you can pretty much shape it as you wish, and it works really fine. This one I just bought off a paint supply store, and it just works amazing. You get this type of stick-on sandpaper. Just rip the excess, and there you have it. So I'm going to start with 40 grit just to shape the filler. Then I'm going to refine with 80 grit. For this curved part, I like to use the cylinder-shaped DuraBlock. Works the same way as any other sanding block. Just peel and stick. Off the excess. And there you have it.
And as you can see, it is a pretty good gap. There's still my tape behind that you can see, but the line is pretty good. Haven't done the lightweight filler yet because I'm going to cover the entire car with another coat of epoxy before I go into doing that. But right now my two door lines on this side are very nice.